I know what a cereal is.
I don't know, Danielle. Maybe you have like a weird Midwestern definition of cereal that I'm not aware of.
I'm pretty sure Midwestern people just eat normal cereal.
I mean, they call salads like mayonnaise and Jell-O, so...
That's actually fair. I've had a lot of ramen noodle salads in my day with like Doritos in them.
Hello, and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Sam.
I'm Danielle.
And this is a podcast about sharing weird media with your friends who aren't familiar with it. And I'm very excited today. We have a veritable classic of a movie, Highlander, which I was shocked to hear you hadn't seen before.
I know. It's a puzzle, a mystery.
I think this is the kind of film I would have made you watch in high school, so...
It does seem like something we would have watched in high school.
Yeah, I blame myself for this deficiency on your part. So we're going to correct that today, not by making you watch that movie, which I hope you might do after this, but at least I can tell you about it and express my joy for this piece of 80s cheese that I love.
I'm super excited about this.
Oh, me too. But before we get started, we just want to share a quick promo from some of our friends.
Ich bin ein
Science! Cannabinoids! Genetics! Coronavirus! Dogs!
This is Petri Dish.
We're a science podcast exploring complex subjects with clarity and evil humor.
Join the scientific revolution.
Join Petri Dish, dropping every Monday on anchor.fm/Petri Dish.
We are back, and first things first, as usual, we have to do the description, and I'm actually going to share two descriptions, because I think IMDb is a terrible place to get film descriptions, because they're all just like one sentence, and that one sentence is always more confusing than it is helpful.
Excellent.
So I'm going to share the IMDb summary, and I'll share a summary from a product page where you can actually buy the film, which is a little bit more helpful.
It says, an immortal Scottish swordsman must confront the last of his immortal opponent, a murderously brutal barbarian who lusts for the fabled prize, quote, unquote.
Now, does that give you any information?
That they're immortal and that prize is capitalized and in quotes for some reason.
Right. Next to useless. So let me give you a slightly better description, which I'm not sure it will tell you anything more, but it certainly has more to it. All right, so try that one.
It says, after Scottish clansman Connor MacLeod discovers his true identity as a member of a legion of immortals, he embarks on a legendary journey spanning continents and centuries, eventually landing in modern-day New York City. Connor faces his ultimate test when other immortals begin to appear in the city for the mythical gathering to claim the prize, again capitalized, leading to a titanic showdown with the frightening and deadly Kurgan. In the end, there can be only one! Exclamation point. There's time travel?
No.
There's not?
No.
It says that he...
I mean, all right, there's technically time travel and that we're all traveling forward through time.
It says that he had a legendary journey spanning continents and centuries, and then he ends up in New York City.
He's immortal. He lives a long time, Danielle.
Oh, they're suggesting that he lives so long that he ends up in modern-day New York City.
Yes, and that is in fact the case.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler to tell you that, but that's a much better description, I think, than the short sentence from IMDb.
Absolutely. It's a completely different story.
Yeah, it's one you'd actually might want to check out.
And also one that apparently doesn't involve time travel, even though it really sounds like it does from that description, just so you know.
The phrase modern day New York does imply time travel. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
But that would be true in any context. And also, modern is in quotes here because this is from 1986. So it's modern in that it's already like 30 some years behind us.
Okay, I'm prepared. I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, Highlander, a couple of fun facts. The soundtrack was done by Queen.
Really?
And so a lot of the songs were, yeah.
How did I not know that?
Yeah, so they wrote a bunch of songs like Who Wants to Live Forever was for this movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know anything about this movie, apparently, so I thought it was about time travel.
So that classic Queen hit was inspired by the Highlander. Or, I'm sorry, Highlander, not the... Oh, I always get that wrong. And also, Christopher Lambert, the main actor, the main character here who plays Connor MacLeod, our Scottish hero, did not speak English when they hired him to do this movie.
Really?
Yeah, he's French and did not speak English. He apparently spent 6 weeks in an intensive English boot camp to get his language skills up to snuff.
That's intense.
They are not.
Oh.
I mean, no, he speaks really good English, or at least he reads really good English lines, but his accent, as I'll cover in detail when we get to it, is nutso.
This is exciting.
All right, so we open with the red text, Highlander. And then more red text, which is narrated by none other than Sean Connery.
I thought he was somehow involved in this movie.
Oh, he very much is. And in fact, spoiler alert, he and Christopher Lambert became such good friends that in the sequel, he was the one person Christopher Lambert insisted come back and reprise his role. And in fact, according to the IMDb trivia page, which is always right, this was the only role that Sean Connery ever reprised aside from James Bond.
Like in the future movies? Because there's more than one, right?
Well, I don't know if he did it in 3, 4, 5, or however many were, but at least in the immediate sequel, Highlander 2, he appeared.
Okay.
So, anyway, there's a big block of narration from Sean Connery. I, again, won't do the accent because I don't want to embarrass myself or Scotland.
You should do it.
Nope.
Oh. You're no fun.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. From the dawn of time we came, moving silently down through the centuries, living many secret lives, struggling to reach the time of the gathering, when the few who remain will battle to the last. No one has ever known we were among you, until now.
Dun, dun, dun!
So then, Queen's Princess of the Universe starts playing, and their opening credits roll.
I want to see this movie so bad if it has a Queen soundtrack and is set in Scotland and has time travel that's not time travel.
It's not time travel, but this is what I'm talking about here is the next thing that's going to become very obvious in the opening is that this movie jumps around a lot. It has scenes that just smash cut from scene to scene to scene, and it'll go modern day New York, smash cut to 15th century Scotland, back to modern day New York for like 2 minutes, and then back to Scotland. So I'm going to do my best to convey this jumping around, but it's going to be weird.
Okay.
So it cuts to a pro wrestling match.
Uh-huh.
And it's this big burly guy getting into the ring, and it's weirdly sexual because he's like taking off his robe in a kind of like come hither way, and it cuts to this girl sticking her tongue out. And then it cuts to a TV that's showing the wrestling match, but the TV's still in the arena where the wrestling match is taking place, and the camera sort of then flies over the crowd and does like a kind of like a helicopter shot, but it's not a helicopter. I think it's like a crane system or wires or something. Mm-hmm. Goes over the crowd and everyone's cheering, and it settles on this dour man in a trench coat sitting there while everyone else is cheering. He's just like not having a good time, and he's broody as all heck. And it's just like, oh, hello, sad man in a cheering crowd of wrestling fans. Good to meet you. The man closes his eyes, and there's a flashback to a brief battle in medieval Scotland, and then it keeps cutting between the man and Scotland, like, rapidly. Every, like, couple of seconds, it's cutting back and forth. And he gets up, and he leaves the arena suddenly. He just, like, looks around and gets out like a rabbit who is startled. And he wanders into a parking garage. Everything's very dark and gritty. It has that 80s kind of grit to it.
Uh-huh. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes, like, it's oddly dark. Like, everything that's shot in New York is night or rainy or dark.
There's no daylight in New York City.
There is, I mean, they have some daylight scenes, but the overall feeling from the film is one of dark grittiness, which is great because it's a goofy movie, and I love that. So he's walking through this parking garage, and he's wandering around when suddenly a man in aviator glasses and a suit pops up behind him, just like appears, and goes, McLeod! And then McLeod goes, Facile! Wait! And then the dude just pulls out a sword and swings it at McLeod.
As you do.
As you do. Just a big old sword under a coat, and he does it. And
are they in an empty space alleyway?
I mean, it's a parking garage attached to the arena, I presume. Yeah. And there's no one there, but there are lots of cars. And McLeod pulls out a sword from under his trench coat, and they just go at it.
Is that why he was wearing a trench coat? Because there was a sword under?
Yes. You're putting all the pieces together, Danielle. It's great. And they fight, and it's kind of lackluster, and it's really funny because Facile is in this black suit, and McLeod is in a trench coat, jeans, and sneakers, which is a heck of a combo. Like a brown trench coat, not even like a cool trench coat.
That's how I imagined it in my head, actually, weirdly.
Good. It's like your default trench coat. It's the kind you would expect in any sort of film noir kind of thing. And it's great. So they fight, and every time their swords hit, they're like sparks go flying every time they hit anything. And apparently they hooked up batteries to the swords that like ran wires down the people's arms so they could get these sparks flying. And I love the 80s.
Like off screen. I'm assuming not in the movie.
Not in the movie, but like, no, the special effects hooked to the batteries. So everything was sparks everywhere, which is ridiculous.
How does it spark? How does that work? Sorry, it's not related to the movie. I'm just curious.
And you have a battery in each thing. When they connect, it causes an arc. Like if you ever like touch the terminal of a battery together,
that
you
makes
get a spark.
sense.
Yeah. It's electricity. It's great.
That's interesting.
So the swords are literally electrified, and it looks like it, but they're not in the movie, so it's very weird.
Well, magic swords. Immortals, right? They're immortals, aren't they immortals?
Well, you don't know that yet.
Well, but I do from the description.
Just pretend that didn't happen. And it's all very over the top. Like, at one point, McLeod is swinging his sword and he hits a pipe and steam shoots in his face because steam pipes in parking garages. And Facile is on top of a car hood and he puts his sword down, like backflips off the hood, then picks his sword back up. And there was no reason for him to do that backflip. It was just completely unnecessary, but it's great. And they're all flipping around. Like Facile does this like big backflip. He's doing like a tumbling routine, just backflipping through the parking garage for some reason. And it's great. It's so good. And they're fighting. I won't go into much detail because it's kind of boring to retell a fight scene, but trust me, they're worth watching.
I'm excited about this. I'm going to watch this later. I can already tell.
Yeah. Okay, good. I've already done my job then. My job is done.
I'm excited about this one.
And so neither of them look like they're really confident in their sword fighting skills, although apparently they trained with sword fighting masters, but it kind of looks like, Star Wars when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in the first Star Wars movie are fighting and they kind of just sort of like poke at each other half-heartedly. That's kind of what it's like in some ways. Then other times just over the top, like giant swings. Anyway, so McLeod eventually disarms Facile, his opponent, and then just cuts his head off. Just straight up chops his head clean off in one stroke.
That was not going where I thought it was going.
Yeah, where do you think it was going to go?
I don't know. I just thought they had some long history and that the person would be around a lot longer, but apparently his head was just cut off. Unless they're immortals and they can live past getting their heads cut off.
Nope. His head gets cut off, and then like that 80s blue lightning spark effect comes up and like come from the body of Facile, and his body starts like shaking and lightning comes off of it. And the spotlight and a wind machine turn on because you see that McLeod now is in a spotlight and his hair is all blowing in the wind, and the cars start to freak out and explosions go off. He's going, oh, as the lightning surrounds him, and then it all sort of dies down, and then he runs away. McLeod just runs away out of the parking lot after he stashes his sword in the roof of the parking garage.
Why didn't he just put it back under his trench coat?
Danielle, I don't know.
Well,
that was my question.
Got it from.
Why do you stash the sword in the parking garage? Maybe we'll see. It was a smart idea later. And apparently he's clairvoyant because he had to see this coming. But apparently we'll get to that. There's a whole other stuff. We had to go back in time first, Danielle, because now, after that daring fight scene, we travel back to medieval Scotland, 1536.
Okay.
Where McLeod is riding to battle. And he's got long, gorgeous hair, which he doesn't have in the future. It's short, which is very sad.
That is sad.
And he is the chief or some high muckety-muck in the Clan MacLeod. And someone, I think his cousin, says, "Are you scared, Connor?" And he answers with an accent that I can only describe as unique.
So now you do the accents?
Look, Sean Connery's too famous. I'm not going to try to do many accents, but I just got to try to do Christopher Lambert's accent because I'm not going to get it right because it is too special and too unique to be replicated, but something like, "No, Cousin Dougal, I'm not." And he's just sort of like got this weird
sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I kind of know. It's like, it has this sort of weird clipped way of speaking that like the cadence is wrong for English. Uh-huh. Like it's not bad. It's just a native speaker hears and goes, there's just something I kept my finger on that makes it sound not quite right.
At least he's trying.
He is. He's doing a good job. But for someone who didn't speak English 6 weeks ago. Yeah, right. Very impressive. Not Scottish. It doesn't sound like a native English speaker, much less a Scotsman. And it's really great. And his accent doesn't change very much from Scotland and New York. So he sometimes will put on a Scottish accent and sometimes won't. And in the future, it's never there. So it's just really great to see his accent kind of not change and also change at random. It's great. I really love it. It's so much fun listening to him talk. And he's funny. It's a funny movie. Christopher Lambert does a great job, hamming it up, and it's good. But it's insane because everyone around him is talking in perfect Scottish accents, and he doesn't even try.
Are the rest of the actors Scottish, or is there a mix of?
I think it's a mix. Apparently, they hired a bunch of extras from Scotland. Like, they went to the university and hired a bunch of students to play them. But the main actors, I don't know if they're Scottish or not. I didn't look them up. But they do a reasonably good Scottish accent.
According to you.
Again, I'm not an expert, but as someone who doesn't know much about Scottish accents, I would hear the accent and go, oh, yes, that's a Scottish accent. I don't know how accurate it is, but at least I can identify it as Scottish. You cannot identify Lambert's accent as anything. You're like, what? It's English, but I don't know, like, where it's from. It's not like Australian or whatever. It's just not somewhere on this planet. It is a unique to him accent.
The best kind.
Yeah, so he's riding a horse, and they're going off to battle, and a beautiful woman runs up and gives him a flower and asks him to be careful, and tells all the other guys to, like, protect him and look out for my Connor. And so they ride out, and the army square off, and there's a lightning storm. And lightning's a big theme in this movie. It's everywhere. It's all the time. Everything, something dramatic's happening, there's lightning.
Excellent. That's the best thing to happen.
Yeah, the lightning looks fake as heck, because it looks like it's, like, drawn on in that 80s effect in the sky, and it's great. And MacLeod and his clan is on one side, and it cuts to this evil-looking dude who's literally wearing bone armor. And he's there, and he goes, there is one called Connor among them. He's mine. And... like, you know, no one kills him but me or whatever. And so there's this battle, and it's kind of an amazingly brutal battle scene. And I really got into the IMDb trivia for this movie because it's kind of insane. But they hired all these Scottish students from the local school to be extras in these scenes. And apparently they got a little drunk and started really pounding each other. And the medic was apparently kept pretty busy patching up the cuts and bruises. So the battle scene looks brutal.
Authentic, you might say.
MacLeod is sort of wandering through, watching his men get, like, drowned and stabbed. And at one time, this priest, who was apparently there, like, slits a guy's throat and then goes, forgive me, my son. So, thumbs up. Great movie.
Why is there a priest there?
I don't know, Danielle. Why is he slitting a dude's throat from behind? It's insane.
Maybe they're doing last rites on the battlefield?
By murdering them to give them the last rites?
No, I meant, like, maybe that's what the priest is there for, and he just happens to also be murdering people.
Okay, sure.
That's such a bad guy move to be like, that one right there, only I'm allowed to kill that person, which is a terrible battle strategy.
No, because there's a very good reason for that, which we don't know, but he knows.
But that happens a lot in movies.
Yeah, I agree. In general, saying, like, the leader, he's mine, dumb. In this case, is the one exception to the rule.
Excellent. I'm so excited.
And there's bagpipes. So in addition to the murdering
there's bagpipes? Wait, what?
There's bagpipes playing. The whole scene is bagpipes during the battle. And it's so good. It's so good, Danielle.
Is it like classic bagpipe music or is it like 80s bagpipe music?
What? I don't know. What do I know about classical bagpipe music? It doesn't sound like synthesized. It's dudes in kilts playing bagpipes. And it sounds like What do I know from bagpipe music, Danielle?
I meant just like, is it a modern bagpiper song or is it like old school Scottish music?
Name a modern bagpipe song, Danielle. Name one.
I don't know. It could be anything. It's probably played differently if it's like a modern effect to it. I'm sure there are bagpipe players out there who play modern music.
Oh, I'm sure there are too, but this isn't like they're doing a Queen cover on bagpipes, which would be awesome.
That's what I was kind of curious about. Not like Queen specifically, but I was just curious if it sounded
like classic bagpipe battle music.
Okay. Just trying to envision this, Sam.
I know. It's hard. Again, I'm not going to try to dwell too much on the visuals because this is a very visually intense movie and there's a lot going on. So I'm not going to do that too much, but I will try to bring up the most important parts because they're too great to leave out.
Please continue.
So no one will fight MacLeod. He's wandering around yelling, "Fight me, you cowards! Fight me!" And everyone just sort of runs away from him. It's great. So then the evil dude rides up on a horse, gets off his horse, and says, "Fight me!" And then Connor lifts up his sword to attack him and just gets stabbed right in the side.
By the guy?
Yeah.
What?
The evil just stabs him. It's the funniest thing. He just gets stabbed. It's so good. It's just so quick. It's just over. And the guy's just really driving it in there, and he pulls out a sword. Connor collapses. He's about to chop off Connor's head, and he cries, "There can be only one!" When Connor's friends rush over and tackle the evil dude away, like football carry him away, and he screams, "Another time, MacLeod!" And that's it. He doesn't fight the guys off. He doesn't come back for him. He just lets himself be carried away, and it's like, "I'll get you next time, Gadget." It's great. And then we cut back to the present, 1985. Well, I'm going to say present as 1985 just because otherwise I'm going to go insane. But modern day, quote-unquote, New York. And Connor is hauling butt out of the parking lot in this car when all these cops pull up and surround him. And they're like pointing guns at him, get out of the car. And he gets up and they're like kind of rough handling him.
Why did the cops come?
Why?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Maybe they heard something about a guy getting decapitated in a parking garage. People tend to show up exactly where they're needed with no explanation of how they got there in this movie.
Okay, so the cops are there.
And they like pat him down, and they don't find any swords on him because he was smart and stashed his sword in the roof of the parking garage because he's apparently psychic and could see that coming.
Prophetic dreams.
And so they shove him into the cop car and he's arrested, and then it cuts back to Scotland. Connor is lying in his house, apparently dying, and his girl, whoever it was, is like keening and wailing over him, and she's pulled away, saying like, that's no way for a Highlander to be remembered at the end of his life. He should be left in peace to die with dignity. And then it cuts back to the parking garage where the police are photographing the decapitated body, and a woman walks up who looks like she's part of the forensics team, apparently. And people are like, hey, Brenda, looking good. So, casual sexism. Great.
The 80s.
This movie, I don't know if it's making fun of that because these guys are not portrayed as heroes. They're kind of portrayed as jerks. So it's kind of a good takedown of that. So she's walking around, and we learn we're in New York, New Jersey area, and Brenda, as a forensics person, she finds one of the swords under a car. So that's not the one that Connor hid. It must have belonged to Vasile, which she identifies immediately as a rare $1 million sword.
Wait, why?
Because she's a sword expert, which we learn later, but we don't know that right now.
Sure. When she was brought to, why is she a sword expert?
Because, Danielle, the plot demands it.
Because most people are not.
She's not only a forensic investigator for the NYPD, she is a sword expert. She wrote a book about it.
Oh, well, it was very convenient for her to show up in this parking garage where a sword fight took place.
Right? It's amazing. It's so great. So then it cuts back to Connor, who is now sitting in a police interrogation room. And he's being questioned under the name of Nash. So he's an antiques dealer, name of Nash. And they ask him about the murder. He's like, I don't know anything about this. And one of the cops in there says, you talk funny, Nash. Where are you from? And he responds, lots of different places. And that's a good line. And they use that to sort of justify his accent being insane, even though it hasn't really changed since he was in Scotland.
Yeah, in thousands of years.
Hundreds, Danielle, but close.
Wait, where was it? What was it set in?
1536 Scotland.
Oh, that's right. I'm paying attention, I swear.
So I don't really get the accent, but it's cute that they try to play it off with the joke. And there's some casual homophobia from the cop who's like, well, you're there trying to get some tail. And Connor beats the crap out of him. There's a fight. And then after they break up, the cop and Connor, who I'll call Nash or Connor, after they break up the fight, Nash asks, am I under arrest? And they go, no. And it's like, then we're through. And he walks out. But also, why isn't he under arrest?
He just beat up a cop.
Well, there was that, but also he was just found at the site of a murder, the only person in there trying to drive away, fleeing the scene of a murder. That's a pretty good reason maybe to hold a suspect for a few hours.
That's truly like 24 or something.
Yeah, to see if they can get some evidence. Like, they haven't even run the forensics tests yet. They haven't finished searching the parking garage. And it's like, no, get on, get out of here. You're fine. We'll call you later if anything comes up. It's so weird. So then we're back to the evil guy now driving like a Cadillac or a Lincoln or some big car, blaring Queen on the radio, and he signs into a skeezy motel, and he's the Kurgan, although he goes under a different name of Victor Kurgan, which I will never use again because it's not brought up again in the movie.
Is that the guy from before? The bad guy?
The same guy who's like, another time, McLeod. Okay. And he has a massive scar on his throat. And in his room... Oh my God, this is my favorite thing. In his room, he opens up a briefcase, and inside is like, you ever see a sniper rifle that's been like being assembled by an assassin, and they take out the briefcase and there's a sniper rifle and they're putting all the parts together?
Yes.
It's that, but it's a claymore. It's a sword. So he opens up this briefcase, and like little foam slots are pieces of a giant sword all taken apart, and he starts assembling it together. And I'm no swordsmith. I don't know a lot about swords.
How does that work?
But I think, like, a sword where even the blade is in two pieces would compromise its structural integrity. Like, the minute you hit something with that, it's just gonna snap in half. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's... I don't know. I can't support that nonsense.
So he's assembling the sword, and it keeps cutting to him, like, practicing with, like, swinging it around and rolling it between his arms and, like, dancing around his hotel room swinging it as he's assembling it. And so I don't really get why that's happening, but he's like going, "At last, the gathering," as he's assembling the sword. And then a prostitute walks in the room and says, "Hi, I'm Candy." And he just goes, "Of course you are."
No.
And the scene ends. It's great. It's really good. It's hilarious.
She's not concerned by the swordplay.
Apparently, she's just like, all right, cool.
She's probably walked in on weirder things, I guess.
Who knows? But it's so funny. It's just such a great scene. Clancy Brown is probably I love Christopher Lambert, but Clancy Brown hams it up. He is the most, like, crazy, evil punk rock dude ever in this movie. It's so good. So we cut now back to Connor retrieving his sword from the parking garage, and apparently there's no one there, like, stopping him. He just walks in and grabs his sword, even though it's an active crime scene where a guy was just decapitated.
It's like no police presence at all.
No. I mean, maybe it was a few days ago. I don't know. But then Brenda shows up. She had just been running some tests in the lab, and she's like, "This can't be right." And she goes to the parking garage, and Nash, Connor, whoever, quickly hides behind a post as she goes into the parking garage and pulls some metal filings out of a cut in one of the stone pillars where they were fighting, the concrete pillars. Mm-hmm. And then he runs off, and she, like, hears him run away. He's like, "Hello? Is anyone there?" So that's neat.
I love when people do that in movies. Like, the bad guy's gonna be like, "Oh, yes, I'm over here."
So then it cuts to Brenda at a bar when Connor shows up in the bar and strikes up a conversation with her. Like, "Oh, you go to the square often?" Because apparently that was Madison Square Garden.
So she knows that he's a person of interest
Suspect?
in this. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I assume she does. I would hope she does.
So she's just, like, chatting with this guy that she knows is a suspect in a murder investigation.
Well, she's not really into the chatting. She's like, "Are you following me?" And he's like, "No." And he says, "But I'd like to walk you home." And she's like, "I can walk myself home, thank you," and just leaves. I'm like, good for her.
Good. Because that's, like, a terrible idea.
So she walks out, and then Connor walks out a minute later, and apparently Brenda is, like, hiding behind the corner of the bar and then follows Connor, plot twist, as he walks away. So she's following him now.
Trixie.
And then he ducks into an alley, and she walks by the alley, and he pulls her in, like just a thing of the hand over the mouth. Uh-huh. And she's about to yell. He's like, "Be quiet." And then immediately while they're doing that, Kurgan just pops up and swings a sword at Connor. Just like, "Peekaboo! Surprise! Sword!" It's so good.
There's a lot going on in this alley.
Yeah. So Connor, like, shoves Brenda away and pulls out his sword, and they fight in the alley, and there's sparks, and they're fighting, blah, 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 blah. It's a great scene. There's steam everywhere. And Kurgan yells, "There can be only one!" And as he kicks McConnor's butt. But then a police helicopter shows up somehow.
Wait, why? Why is there a police helicopter?
And it shines a spotlight on them, and then Kurgan runs away, yelling, "Another time, Highlander!"
Why? I don't understand this at all.
No, it gets better. And then McCloud runs away, and the guy on the chopper just goes, "Hey, stop that." Like in that exact deadpan voice, he's like, "Hey, stop that." And they run away, and that's it. They just run away from the helicopter. And nobody, like, follows them. The helicopter doesn't give chase. They just run away. I'm like,
why is the helicopter even there?
That's a great question. Maybe Brenda called it in.
What?
I don't know.
It's like on her cell phone from 1986.
Good point, Danielle. I forgot. Walkie-talkies, those sort of thing. I don't know. And then Brenda sort of chases after Connor, is like, "Who was that guy? What did he mean by there can be only one? Why did he call you Highlander?" And kind of sort of like says, "Go away, leave me alone," and leaves.
Like, definitely not telling you.
Oh man, that's a great scene. It's really good. I can't recommend it enough. So we're back in medieval Scotland. Connor is fine. He apparently healed entirely from his mortal wound, and his people are, like, talking about this like, he's got the devil in him. How is he still walking? He should be dead. And his girlfriend and one of his cousins, one of the two people who were, like, his best friends on the battlefield.
There's two of them. I thought you said his girlfriend, who was one of his cousins.
No. Like, I mean, maybe. Well, I mean, maybe. Medieval Scotland. Who knows? I don't know their familial relationship. They're clans. There's lots of inbreeding. It's fine. So anyway, they're all talking about him, in these hushed tones about it ain't natural. He's got the devil in him. And he walks in to the bar tavern, whatever, where they're all drinking, and everyone sort of goes silent, like, you should be dead. Like, would you rather I was dead? And they're like, you should go. And he's like, no, I'm going to sit here and drink with my kin. And then he gets a bottle smashed over his head. Uh-huh. And the next scene is them, like, he's up in a pillory, but one that doesn't have, like, a post. So he's just got his arms and head in this wooden crossbar. And he's being dragged through the mud of the street and being, like, beaten by all the people in the village. And his girlfriend and his cousin are like, beat the devil out of him.
Why is everybody so scared of him earlier? And then apparently he can just get stabbed and kidnapped.
What? Stabbed and kidnapped? When did he get stabbed and kidnapped?
He got stabbed because he almost died, and then he just got kidnapped and thrown into a pillory.
Oh, well, okay. I guess that's a kidnapping. I thought you meant back in New York or something. I'm getting my timelines mixed up. I don't know. They think he is a devil. That's all I got, Danielle. Religious persecution.
Okay.
So they're all rearing up to, like, burning at the stake when one of his other cousins, Angus or McDougal, I think it's Angus. I can't keep them straight.
They're like complete. Are there two separate people called Angus and McDougal?
Yeah, one's got brown hair, one's got red hair.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I was just trying to figure out how you confuse the names Angus and McDougal because they're very different names.
They're very different names, but they're both like generic Scots name. Like, what's the most Scottish name I can think of? McDougal, Angus. Yeah, okay. So they're about to burn the stake when it's definitely Angus who goes up and says, stop! There'll be no burning here. We'll just banish him. And he asks him, can you walk? And he says, I'll bloody well walk out of here. They kick him out and he's just seen wandering the moors of Scotland in the pillory, walking away. So that's fun. So then we're back to 1985, where we're at Connor's massive antique shop / home, which I am so jealous of. It's amazing. It's the most beautiful, giant open apartment, windows, beautiful couches. It's so great.
All immortal people are rich.
I mean, they have time to amass quite a bit of wealth. So yeah.
Apparently.
It looks amazing. And then he sits down on his couch and then he's back in Scotland. He closes his eyes, like remembering being back in Scotland. And now it's like 5 years later. He's living in a small stone tower with another girl working as a blacksmith. The girl is named Heather. And he has this gross matted hair because he's working on something. And the girl comes up to him and is like, hey, Connor, how you doing? They like play around a bit and he dunks his head into a water barrel. And then it cuts to a next scene where they're sort of having sex out on a hill in Scotland. And his hair is now suddenly clean and very nice.
Oh, it was probably later. He probably took a shower.
Yes, showers in 14th, 15th century Scotland,
like a
whatever.
bath or went to the nearby lake or something. People occasionally got wet in
Okay.
1500s.
Yes, they did, especially in this movie. Hey-oh! All right, so they're having sex out on this field when suddenly Sean Connery yells, hello, and jumps a horse over them.
Wait, Sean Connery's here?
Yeah, Sean Connery's here. Sean Connery, they're having sex and suddenly you hear, hello, and a horse jumps over them. And Sean Connery wearing this red suit with like peacock feathered hat. It's crazy. Uh-huh. And he introduces himself as Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, chief metallurgist to the King Charles of Spain.
Uh-huh. So he's a Scottish person who's playing like a Spanish person?
No. We learn later he's Egyptian by way of Spain. And he's got Sean Connery's Scottish accent talking to the French guy playing the Scotsman with the crazy accent. It's all bonkers. It's so good.
Why would they not use him for a Scottish role? That must have been purposeful.
I don't know. I think it was, I don't know why. It's insane. But the Scottish guy plays the Egyptian Spaniard and the French guy plays the Scotsman, and none of their accents make any sense.
Oh, I love this casting. My favorite part.
It's so good. It's such a great movie. It's so good. Anyway, he introduces himself as Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, chief metallurgist, the King Charles of Spain. So now we enter the exposition part of the movie, where Sean Connery, Ramirez, whatever, agrees to train Connor in sword fighting and other things, because after they first meet, Ramirez goes up to Connor and suddenly lightning starts flashing and he's doubling over in pain like, oh, and he says, go inside, woman. And then it just sort of cuts to shots of Connor getting struck by lightning. Uh-huh. Like he sticks his hand up in the air and like lightning strikes his fingers. And you hear Ramirez talking and he's like, you feel that? That's the quickening. There's my one Sean Connery accent.
It was solid. Good job.
Thank you. That feeling is the quickening. What's the quickening? I don't know. We'll find out later, probably. Maybe.
I have a question.
And then we cut back to the present.
A question.
Yes, please.
So people were scared of him before Connor,
yes.
right?
Yes.
He said on the battlefield nobody wanted to fight him.
Well, that's because the the evil dude said, don't fight him, he's mine. They weren't scared of him because of anything they knew about him. They were just following the orders.
Is he a good swordsman yet, or is he just terrible at it?
I don't know. Not good enough.
I was just curious why Sean Connery Ramirez was like, hey, I want to train you on swordplay.
We'll get to that, probably.
Okay.
But there's a lot more 1985 to get through to get back to 1530. I guess it's 1541 now. Anyway, so we're back to the present, and Connor is polishing his sword, not a euphemism, and he's and he's reading a book by Brenda about ancient metallurgy and sword making. So he knows who she is because he's reading her book.
How did he find her book? Google wasn't a thing.
Apparently, and he says this later in the movie, he has an extensive library.
It just happened to have that one. I guess there's probably not a huge collection of very specific sword books.
Yeah, and he's a dude who's into swords, clearly. So he would have sword books.
I'll buy it, whatever.
So he's doing that, and then it flashes back to Ramirez has Connor on a boat. They're rowing out in the middle of a lake, and Connor's like, I don't like being out here. I can't swim. And he's standing up like he's doing a balance test on the boat. And they're bantering back and forth. He calls Ramirez a haggis or a Spanish peacock, which is great because he doesn't sound Spanish in the least.
Sean Connery sounds exactly the same in every movie he's ever been in.
He does. It's so good. No matter what he's playing, he's always Sean Connery. So Sean Connery's like, I guess Ramirez, I keep calling him Sean Connery because he's just such...
He is Sean Connery.
Yeah. This is not a character he disappears into. This is Sean Connery. So he's like, you don't get it. You still don't understand what I'm trying to tell you. And he tips the boat, and McLeod falls out of the boat and drowns, and begins to drown. And then Sean Connery rows the boat away, and McLeod is drowning, and he goes and he sinks to the bottom of the lake. And then he's like, oh, wait, I can breathe. I'm fine. So like a mermaid just chilling on the bottom of the lake.
How does he breathe?
Danielle, shut up.
It's a valid question.
He's immortal, Danielle. He doesn't need to breathe like mortals do. I don't know.
But he didn't know he was immortal like 2 seconds ago, right?
No, he didn't. He's just fine chilling on the bottom of the lake, and he walks along the bottom of the lake until he walks out of the lake, and he's trying to sneak up on Sean Connery, who set up a campfire. And he swings his sword at Sean Connery, and Sean Connery just disappears, and is then out behind him is like, clumsy, very clumsy. I'll need to train you.
Okay, so Sean Connery knew that he was going to survive falling into the lake. Okay. Otherwise, it's really weird that he just went up on shore and was like, oh, well, he's dead.
Yeah, no. Sean Connery knows. So Sean Connery tells him that he's an immortal, and Sean Connery is also another immortal. And he was born in BC Egypt, and then has lived 2,000 some years, and has been wandering around since then, and he's come to train him. And Ramirez explains that there are some immortals born. Why? Don't ask questions. It just happens. And people will fear and hate them. They have power, and they have to learn to hide their power. And they're all being pulled towards the gathering when only a few of them remain, and they will fight to the death for the prize. What's the prize, Danielle? Don't ask questions. It doesn't matter. It's a prize. We want it.
Okay, so do more immortals recognize other immortals? It seems like they all know each other.
So that's what the quickening is. It's like the sensation you have when you're near another immortal where you can sort of feel the pull towards them.
Okay. And
the only way to kill an immortal is to decapitate them.
Well, good thing he decapitated that dude.
And they have to fight until there's only one left at the gathering. There can be only one.
So this is like a deathmatch Hunger Games
like a battle royale. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He also tells them that they're safe on holy ground. It's tradition. None of us will violate that law. But why? Also, what's holy ground? Because some ground is holy to everybody, right?
That's true.
So that's unclear to me.
But not relevant to the plot, I'm assuming.
I mean, there's one scene in a church later where they don't fight because holy ground.
Right, but they take it as a really specific version of holy ground.
I guess. It's never really expanded upon. Anyway, so they can't fight on holy ground. So then it does this training montage kind of thing, where Sean Connery is training McLeod in sword fighting. And then there's this weird scene at the end of it where they're on a beach and there's a stag, and Sean Connery is telling him, feel the stag, become one with the stag, feel its blood in your veins. And I'm not sure what's going on. He's like, I feel it. And they start running off down the beach, apparently very fast because they now have stag speed.
Really? Does it only work with stags?
That was my question. It is never brought up again.
Really?
So,
it's just a one-off thing?
It's just something that happens. It's just sort of to highlight that they're special. I mean, it kind of is at the very end explained, but Not really.
That seems like a scene that would have ended up on the cutting room floor.
It did not. So Ramirez advises Miss Cloud to leave his wife, his partner Heather, because she, one, will grow old and die, and he won't, because he's immortal. Mm-hmm. Also, they can't have children, because apparently the immortals are sterile.
Okay, sure.
No babies for them.
Can't have other immortals.
Nope, apparently not. So Ramirez explains that he's over 2,000 years old, and his last wife was a Japanese princess, and the Japanese princess's dad made him a very special sword, and then he was shattered when she died. So it's better just to leave and not watch his loved ones grow old and die. Connor doesn't really agree, so he decides to stay and be with Heather. But Ramirez further explains that there's this evil dude tracking him down, the guy he saw on the plane, or initially, the evil guy, the Kurgan. And he explains that he's from a race of people called the Kurgans who are from way back in time.
So his name is Kurgan, and he's from a race called the Kurgans?
No, they just call him the Kurgan.
Okay.
He never gets a name. He just call him the Kurgan. And they're from Russia, like the steppes of Russia. It's a brutal ancient race, and he is super evil and very powerful. He's the most powerful of the immortals. And if he wins the prize, it'll be darkness for the whole world forever. I still don't know what the prize is. Apparently, it's bad if he gets it.
Did we ever find out what the prize is?
Kinda.
Okay. Don't spoil it. It's fine. I was just curious.
I'm just going to leave it at that. So there's some more shots of McLeod and Heather. You know, they're in the village. They're having a good time. Heather sees some kids and is like wistful at them. And Connor starts to feel a little pang of guilt. And it cuts to a scene where Heather and Ramirez are drinking in the tower. And Connor's not there. They're just having some fun, drinking wine. And suddenly the Kurgan shows up. And he busts in through the door. And they fight. And it's a really great scene because they're in this big stone tower. The tower is basically being torn apart while they're fighting. They swing their swords and they knock down the walls of the tower and it's slowly being destroyed.
Are the swords that powerful?
I don't know, apparently. If you're an immortal wielding them.
Normal swordplay would not knock down walls.
It would absolutely not knock down walls, but there's lightning flashing and these guys are immortal, powerful beings, I guess. So they're fighting, and Ramirez manages to slice the Kurgan's throat, which is where he got that lovely scar, and actually changes his voice, so he talks much more gruffly now in the future than he did before his throat got slit.
We like continuity.
Yeah, Clancy Brown really pulling out all the stops there. And they tear apart the tower, and eventually it's just the staircase left of the tower, and they're on it, and it's Ramirez on the staircase and the Kurgan on the staircase, and Ramirez gets bested, his sword gets knocked away, and the Kurgan cuts off his head. And that same sort of lightning thing happens where the body explodes in lightning, and the Kurgan gets all the lightning goes into him, and the tower collapses under the lightning, and then Heather sort of walks towards where the Kurgan was buried under rubble, which, bad idea. Maybe run away. But then the Kurgan sticks his hand out and grabs Heather, and it's implied that he attacks her.
Oh no, Sean Connery's dead, Heather's dead.
Well, it's much worse than that.
The entire tower is collapsed.
Yeah, and then we're back in the present. Brenda, the forensics person, shows up at Connor's antique shop and is questioning his secretary. And then Connor shows up and says, have dinner with me. And she's like, fine, come to my place for dinner. Which, what?
So she's questioning the secretary just about him?
He's like, where is Nash? I gotta talk to Nash. He has some questions he has to answer for me. Uh-huh. And then Nash shows up and she's like, you have questions, we can talk at dinner.
This is the worst idea. Again, he's a suspect in a murder.
Yeah, no kidding. She's like, yeah, just come to my apartment for dinner.
What would happen, if this went to trial? You'd be in so much trouble as a cop?
Oh, this is awful. She's so fired. So then it cuts to a police station where one of the cops is telling the lieutenant they saw Brenda in Nash's shop talking to Nash. And then it cuts to McLeod in a dark room and his secretary walks up to him. And apparently she knows he's immortal because she's like, you live forever, but you can't always hide from me or whatever. And then it cuts to a flash.
So wait, did he just find out that she knew that he was immortal or has she known for a while?
She's known we're going to find out right now.
Okay.
Because it cuts to a flashback of World War II where Connor is running through a battlefield in Europe in World War II, and he ducks into a bombed-out barn.
Was he conscripted? Why is he in the army?
I don't know, Danielle. He's just there.
He's
just in a battlefield. Just hanging out in a battlefield. Who knows? And he finds a scared child under some rubble in this barn. She's maybe 5 or 6, and she speaks perfect English. They both do, because Europe, I guess. And he asks her what happened. She says, everybody's dead. So in a very deadpan way, it's kind of like Newt in Aliens about they mostly come out at night.
Mostly come out at night. Mostly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really great. And so he picks her up and says, come with me. I'll keep you safe. And as they're walking away, this Nazi officer just machine guns him in the back, just blasts him. And he falls over and pretends to be dead. And the girl's like, you're not dead. And he's like, shh. And the Nazi officer walks over to him and he knocks the officer down, takes the machine gun, points it at the officer. And the officer says something in German. And Connor's like, whatever you say, Jack, you're the bastard race. And then blasts him away.
It's intense.
It's really great. It's so quippy and over the top, like a parody almost of action movies. And so apparently that little girl is the secretary in New York. And so his adopted daughter in name of Rachel.
So she's 40, 50s now, older.
Yeah. Okay. She's pretty old. She's in her 50s. And in the present, Rachel says that he's lonely and he can't hide it from her. And then the scene ends. So then it's at Brenda's house. So he goes to dinner at Brenda's house and she set up a secret tape recorder and hidden a gun in her room, which apparently she thinks is enough to do something. I don't know what her plan is.
Terrible. It's seriously a terrible idea.
No, never invite a murder suspect that you have no idea who he is to your house.
Or even if he wasn't a murder suspect and you just saw this weird epic sword battle in an alleyway. Right. Also a bad idea.
Yeah. None of this is a good idea. Her danger sense is no bueno. So he comes to her house, he shows up, and she's like, can I take your trench coat? And he's like, nope, I'll keep it on. Because apparently there's a sword in there, I'm guessing.
Uh-huh. Not suspicious at all.
Yeah, and what I come across yet is this movie's pretty funny. There's all these little looks that happen. For instance, Connor passes in the hallway of Brenda's apartment a painting of a Scottish guy in a kilt and sort of makes eyes at the camera, lifts his eyebrows, he goes, and it's pretty funny. So after Brenda leaves to go put on her earrings or something, he takes off his coat and there's no sword. So I'm not sure why.
He comes over and she's like, excuse me, I have to go put on my earrings.
Yes, exactly.
What?
And then
let's leave the murder suspect alone in the living room. This is a good idea.
Yeah, it does not go well. So he's poking around and he takes off his coat again, like I said, and there's no sword. So I'm not sure why he insisted on keeping it on.
Is it a magic invisible sword? Can you just pull it out of random places?
Yeah, their swords must be hidden.
Maybe
somehow
it's one of those
in their, body
collapsible
cavities.
swords.
Danielle, we've established that. Only the Kurgan has the collapsible sword. He's the special one.
Well, apparently you can make one. Maybe he has one too.
Sure. All right, Danielle, let's go with that.
Just problem solving.
He's poking around her apartment as they chit-chat through the door, and he finds the gun, he finds the tape recorder, and he just sort of smiles at them, and he sees one of the police guys has staked out her apartment out in the alley, and so she comes back in, he gives her a gift, and she unwraps it, and it's the book, her book. And so he's like, oh, I know who you are because I have your book. Because she's like, oh.
Wait, he gifted her own book?
It's kind of like a...
surprise, I know who you are gift.
Yeah, it wasn't like an actual gift. It was like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do, but I got you. Because she's like, oh, I work for the Met. And I'm a curator there. And I have questions about old swords. And he's like, no, it says in your bio here you work for the NYPD. So I know who you are.
That's a dramatic, revealing way to state that.
And she's like, you bastard. And he's like, okay, I know who you are. You're working with the police. And she's like, I'm not working with the police. She's like, why are they parked outside your door? And she's like, what? There are? And so she's taken by surprise by that. And he's about to storm out. And she's like, I don't care about finding a murderer. I only care about finding that sword. Because apparently that sword is some kind of non-existent legendary sword that shouldn't exist.
This is a sword that she found in the parking garage,
not the sword
right?
she found. She found a sword, but not the one that he has. She found the other sword that belonged to Facile, not the one that belonged to Connor, which he hid in the ceiling.
Right.
And she found...
So she's interested in finding the sword, or he's interested in
She's interested in finding the sword because she found fragments of it in the alley. And apparently when she analyzed them, the sword was too old to exist. It is using techniques that weren't invented for hundreds of years after when it was dated. But it's like finding some amazing piece of technology back in the caveman era, like a car during the Renaissance or whatever. So it's something to make her career.
Do you think you could actually find out all that information from a little bit of metal in the...
No.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a metallurgist, but I imagine it would take more than a day.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We can agree on that one.
I don't know what the timeline is. I don't know how many days have passed because it keeps cutting back and forth. So I don't know if in 1995 it's cutting back to weeks or days later. So I don't know. But anyway, so apparently she does not care about her job as a forensics investigator or finding a murderer. She only wants to find the sword to help her career.
Uh-huh.
And Connor's like, you only care about yourself, and storms out.
Why is she also a forensic analyst for the police department if she has a career as a book writer with...
Danielle,
It's like very weirdly divergent.
It's a niche
career
book.
path.
I don't think it makes a lot of money. I don't think it's going to be like a bestseller.
That's probably true.
Yeah. All right. Whew.
But she seems like she could make it a career. I bet she could like go around and do speeches and stuff, conventions. I don't know. Those things probably exist.
Well, you can be her career advisor, Danielle, when you talk to her.
She needs to market herself better. That's what really needs to happen in this story.
Maybe she's humble, Danielle. I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's what she is.
You can be humble and market yourself.
Maybe she's not humble, shy.
Okay.
Anyway, so it flashes back to the destroyed tower, and Queens, Who Wants to Live Forever, is playing through this next sort of montage. And as Heather and Connor, they're rebuilding their lives together. Heather starts growing old, while Connor doesn't. She becomes an old woman, and
She doesn't think it's weird? Does she know that he's immortal now? I'm assuming at some point she figured it out.
I think she figures it out, because she's like, why do you stay with me, my young, beautiful Connor? And he's like, because I love you as much now as the first day. And it's actually a pretty touching scene with the music as he watches her die. And so, props to the movie for actually pulling out some actual emotion. Yeah, it's very sad. And he like buries her and leaves his sword, his original claymore, in the dirt as like her gravestone, and walks away. And then it cuts back to the modern day where McLeod is meeting a guy in Central Park on a bridge who's another immortal.
They're just all over the place.
Well, they're all being drawn to New York because of the gathering.
Right. Of course it's in New York.
Yes, of course, it's in modern day New York. And they do this cute little thing where they walk up to each other and they both have their hands in their trench coats, and then they pull them out and they're empty and they go, and they hug. Actually, I shouldn't say they're empty. Connor's is empty. The other guy pulls out a flask. So, I like him better. As they discuss,
But they have to kill each other eventually, right?
That's the idea.
Otherwise, that sucks.
So they discussed that the gathering is here, and the other guy's like, we should have a party. And McLeod's like, I remember the last time we had a party. And it flashes back now to like 1789, and it's McLeod on this English hillside, it looks like, and he's about to duel a guy in a wig, like a prim and proper dandy, and they're having a duel, and he's drunk off his butt. He's like falling over until he holds his sword, and his powdered wig is sort of coming off, and they're like, ready? And go, and he gets stabbed immediately and falls over. And the guy's like, okay, great, so I wipe my sword, and then he gets back up, and the guy's like, what? And he stabs him again. And he falls back over, and that happens a few times. He keeps getting stabbed and falls over, and then gets back up, and eventually he apologizes, like, I'm sorry I called your wife those nasty names. I sincerely regret it, and just walks away. It's really great. And the noble guy is really ticked off, and he shoots his footman in the back as his footman brings him a pistol to shoot McLeod. And it's just really weird.
I wonder if that would ever get old, like pranking people for your immortality.
So I thought it was a really great scene because it shows him like using his powers for dickishness, which is I would probably do.
Which we would all do, let's be honest.
Absolutely. And it's really funny. It has nothing to do with the plot. It does nothing to further the plot anyway. It's just a really funny scene that they kept in, and I'm glad they did. So the next thing that happens is some guy with a bunch of guns is tooling around in a Firebird around New York, and he sees two people sword fighting in an alley, and he pulls over and he grabs some guns. He's like clearly an ex-Marine gun nut guy on a vigilante thing going on.
I was like, what the heck?
And it's Kurgan fighting the guy McLeod was speaking to in Central Park. And they're fighting.
The friends.
Yeah, the friend. And they're fighting, and the Marine goes up and sees them fighting, and he's like yelling at them to stop, and they just completely ignore him because, duh. And the Kurgan cuts the head off of the other guy, and the Marine just open fires into him and shoots him a bunch. And that does nothing because he just gets back up and brutally stabs the Marine guy and like lifts him up on his sword, and, like throws him across the alley from his sword. It's pretty awful. And then,
to be fair, like, I don't think he should have died, but also, like, really, should he have stopped and gone like, I'm gonna go stop this sword fight from happening by myself with some guns.
It's a vigilante move. And then the lightning comes up where the corpse lightning happens, which was kind enough to wait until all this happened to start. So
that was very delayed.
It was. And it's super violent this time. Like windows are exploding outwards. A manhole cover shoots up into the air and explodes. It's great.
Is it getting worse because there are less and less immortals?
I'm guessing either that or the Kurgan makes it more violent or something. I don't know. And then the Kurgan walks over to a car that has like an old man and a woman in it who are watching the fight, and he like can opens the car with his sword, like peels off the roof and throws the guy out, and he looks at the woman, goes, "Hi, Mom," and like drives off and like kidnaps her, and she's just screaming. And it's really great. I mean, it's awful, but it's hilarious.
This is just so he could there was a whole other car, right? That was free because he just killed the dude that was in the car. He just went with this one.
Yeah, I can steal the car, the old lady, and go joyriding with this poor old woman who's screaming. And the guy runs after going, "Hey, my car!" Not his wife, his
No,
car.
I hate my wife.
This movie is genius. It's so good.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good. So the scene ends and it cuts to the hospital where the Marine survived and he's talking to the cops and they're interviewing him. They show him a picture of McLeod and like, is this the guy who you saw fighting? He's like, no, that wasn't him. And he gives him a description of the Kurgan. So like, damn, we have the wrong guy.
That other guy that we let go really wasn't the perpetrator.
I mean, who knows? There could be other perpetrators. So it then cuts to Brenda, who's going to a public records to find the birth certificate for Nash. And then she finds it and then goes talk to the doctor who delivered Nash. And he just tells her everything she wants to know. Apparently there's no HIPAA protections or whatever. He's just like, oh yes, I remember delivering that baby. It was an unwed mother and she died in childbirth and then the baby died shortly afterwards. So cool. Good thing you just told this random woman all this stuff about one of your old dead patients. Good job, doctor.
She's like super committed to finding out what's up with this guy.
Yeah, but she doesn't do anything with the police. Like, this is all just her. She worked with the police, but she doesn't clue them in ever once to what's going on.
Well, she saw all the lightning stuff, didn't she? When she was in the alleyway?
No, because no one died there.
No, they just had the fight.
Yeah, and then ran away because the helicopter showed up, Danielle.
Oh, that's right. That's right. How can I forget the helicopter? Sorry.
Yeah. So she's getting to dig deeper, and she uncovers this pattern of people who have been willing this house Connor lives into each other. So each one of them is using the birth certificate of someone who died immediately after being born, essentially.
Right. That's how it works.
And she goes up...
That's how you get fake social security numbers.
Yep. And she goes to this computer geek guy and has him look up all the deeds to the house. And he does the thing where he brings up all the signatures on the 80s computer. So it's like the green fluorescent CRT monitor and it's all the green signatures. And it does that thing where like starts pulling out letters one at a time for each of the signatures and putting them down in a box in the bottom. And it reassembles, Nash's name. And it's like, oh, perfect match for the handwriting. It's great. It's really stupid. It's great. And she's like, wow, I guess this is big. And so then it cuts to a church. And Connor's in this church and he lights a candle both for his dead wife and for his friend Ramirez, who the Kurgan killed. And the Kurgan finds him in the church and says to Connor, it's just you and me now. We're the last ones.
That was quick.
Yeah. And the Kurgan is like, some nuns walk by and he's going like, to the nuns and like causing a scene. And he brags about killing Connor's friend Ramirez and how he raped his wife. And the Kurgan's like, oh, wait, that wasn't Ramirez's wife. That was your wife. And they almost fight, but the Kurgan reminds him that this is holy ground. They can't fight here. So the Kurgan stops the fight, which I did not expect.
Uh-huh. Well, apparently it's a really strict rule.
Yeah. I don't know why the Kurgan's just like, okay, bye. And Connor's like, I'll be outside if you want to fight. And the Kurgan's like, no, we'll fight later. For some reason.
How often does this thing happen? The thing, what is it called again?
The Gathering?
The Gathering.
Once. This is it.
I think I'd
this
be
is the
able
only
to remember
one.
that. Ever? Like in millions of years?
So all the immortals who were born throughout all the centuries, all of them are born, and once all of them are born, they start feeling the pull, and they start killing each other off, and they enter the Gathering where they all bow to the last one left.
What a weird... Wait, they all bow to the last one left?
Battle to the last one left.
Oh, battle. I was like, wait, you said that there was only one. That's a terrible way to keep immortals going as a species or whatever
well,
they
can't
are.
Reproduce, Danielle.
I know, but they keep getting born. You think that, like...
Apparently,
having only
there's a purpose to this.
This plot doesn't make sense,
There's
okay?
a purpose where there's going to be a set number of immortals born, and they're going to fight to the death, and when there's one left, they get the prize.
This does like a really long planned battle royale.
Yeah,
like,
that's pretty much all it is, Danielle.
Thousands of years.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like there's some god up in the sky that's like, this is going to take 8,000 years to complete. It's
Danielle,
going to be great.
Oh, I can't wait to do Highlander 2 because it tries to explain all of this, and it somehow makes it much worse.
Yeah, I need to know. I need to know why.
It's great. Highlander 2. We're going to do that. Maybe, I don't know when, but we'll do it.
Okay. Looking forward to the explanation. I have questions.
Yeah. So after McLeod leaves the church, the Kurgan is continuing to make a scene. Like a priest walks up and is like, this is the house of God. And he's like, ah, and he like yells a speech about it's better to burn out than to fade away, and then leaves. He's so great. He's probably my favorite part of the movie is the Kurgan and his complete over-the-top cheesiness. So then it cuts to Brenda, who's confronting Connor at his home, and she's in the shop, like in his house. She's like, I found all this stuff. What's going on? And Connor explains that he's an immortal, and he says with
he just jumps right into
like,
it, doesn't
I'm
he?
immortal. He's like, I cannot die. I'm 500 years old. I cannot die. He says, and then he says with his best Scottish accent, I am Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod, and I'm immortal. And then he gives her a knife and holds her hand while he stabs himself with the knife to prove that he's immortal.
He Like she asked for proof.
No, she didn't. He just does it.
That's what I mean. Like she asked for proof.
And so as he pulls the knife out and they start looking into each other's eyes, and somehow this totally makes her super hot for him, and they have sex.
What? Why?
Apparently seeing this dude stabbed knowing he's immortal is like, that's my kink.
That's such an odd choice.
I think the movie's like, they're going to have sex one way or another, so let's just make that happen.
Sure, but what a weird place to do it.
It makes no sense.
Oh, you're immortal and I can stab you? Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. She doesn't know him any better. It's just, all right, let's bone.
Okay.
So they have sex, and after the sex scene, it cuts to them at the zoo with lions, because metaphor, and she's very blasé about all this. He's like, so you're immortal, that's fine, but why can't we be together? He's like, we can't get involved because I can't get my heart broken again. I can't get involved with someone else. And she's like, okay, I guess that's it then. We're just not going to date or anything. We just had sex that one time with an immortal, and I'm cool with that.
They could be friends with benefits.
Or not, apparently. I don't know. So then it's Brenda walking into her apartment, and as she's walking up the stairs to her apartment, the Kurgan is there waiting for her somehow.
Ah!
And he chases her through her house, and it's pretty scary, and he kidnaps her, and he takes her on a joyride in this car, screaming, and she's yelling, and he's driving through oncoming traffic and just being completely nutso, and it's really a fun scene. And then she
what
faints.
Happened to the old lady?
Who knows? She is never mentioned again.
Oh, no. Poor old lady. I hope she left her husband.
Right? So then Brenda faints, and it cuts to Connor listening to a tape the Kurgan made of, being like, I have your girl, she's a screamer, which part should I cut off first? I'll be waiting.
Did he, like, voicemail it? Like, how did he get a copy of this tape?
I don't know, Danielle. It just happens to have a tape. He mailed it to her, dropped it off. I don't know.
Dropped it off at his apartment.
Yeah, just mailed it to him,
go.
dropped it off. I don't know.
You think there's proof of life in there?
No, there isn't, except for her screaming on the tape.
Oh, well, that's kind of, sort of proof of life, I guess.
Who knows when the tape was made?
At that specific moment. Yeah.
So Connor's like, all right, time for the ending. He gears up and he says to Rachel, secretary daughter, there are papers in my dresser that'll give you everything, power of attorney. And she's like, you're not coming back, are you? Even if you win, you're not coming back. And he just leaves. And so then it cuts to Connor on a roof where Brenda is chained to the giant Silver Cup Studios sign, which is a big neon sign, a famous New York building. And Connor somehow knows they're up there and climbs up to this roof. And
how did he find them?
Maybe it was on the tape, Danielle. I don't know.
Or maybe it was the immortal sense.
Maybe it was the immortal, the quickening. And so as Connor climbs up the sign to get her down, the Kurgan pops up and swings a sword at him because, that's what happens in the movie. People pop up and swing swords. And they have this great fight scene, and Brenda's screaming on the sign, and the sign is literally falling apart as they're fighting. And at one point, Connor uses his sword to zip line down off the sign from the catwalk they're on. And the Kurgan starts chopping the sign down because Brenda's still tied up to it, and then Connor rushes over, and part of the sign collapses, causing a water tower to collapse, flooding the roof. And so now they're like floating in a wading pool, thigh deep in water, and it's really great. And the sparks are still flying. I'm like, this can't be safe.
This is nonsense.
Yeah, it's great. It's so over the top, and they're fighting, and they crash through a skylight into an empty warehouse, and somehow Brenda climbs down into the warehouse too.
I thought she was all like trapped and
well,
wrapped
as the sign
up
was
to something.
collapsing, apparently she got free and sort of managed to shimmy her way back onto the roof or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter, Danielle. She gets down there somehow.
I like that the bad guy just doesn't want to just kill him. He wants to like kidnap people, kill his friends, like,
he's having
terrorize
a great time.
them before he murders them.
He's making a meal out of this, Danielle. He's having fun. Like, he is an anarchist, hedonist thing. He just loves making chaos. He's the most fun thing in the movie. He's great. And so just as the Kurgan is about to kill McLeod, Brenda comes up and bashes him with a pipe. And McLeod's like, what kept you? So McLeod starts cutting up the Kurgan and finally decapitates him. And as the Kurgan dies, like crazy light and keening comes out of his neck stump. And the weird lightning thing happens, only it's a lot more. And McLeod declares, there can be only one, as way more cheesy lightning happens. And these like demon effects, like cartoon, like demon drawn on the screen, swirl around.
Really?
Demons made of lightning. They go through him, and he's like yelling, the quickening overpowers me. I know everything. And he's just screaming as all this is happening. And it does like this weird zoom, like a zoom into his eye over and over again. There's all these quick cuts to various scenes. It's very trippy and weird. And then he collapses. And then Brendan goes over and puts his head in his lap to comfort him.
Are they demons?
That's how they're described in the Wikipedia page. but they look like demons. They're like horned ghost things, and they're clearly like demonic in some way.
Are they immortal because they're demonic in some way?
No. I'm sorry. The immortals aren't demons. Like killing them.
I know, but if there are demons swirling around them, do the demons like take the immortals when they die?
No. It's not like Ghost, where the
I don't understand why there are demons.
Because he killed the last one. This is the prize, Danielle. He gets like blessed by demons. I don't know.
That makes immortality a little scarier.
Yeah. So then it cuts to Scotland, and you hear a voiceover where Brenda's asking him to describe the prize. Like, what's this prize? And he says he hears everybody in his head. He can know the thoughts of everybody on the planet, all the diplomats, all the scientists, all the presidents. He can hear their thoughts and know what they want, and he can help them understand each other.
How is that a prize?
That's the prize, Danielle. Shut up. Take your prize. You want it. You get it.
Who wants that prize?
And apparently...
Is he going to create world peace? Like, is that how that works?
That's what he's going to do with it, apparently. He's going to use his ability to see what everyone's thinking to help them understand each other.
Dude, can you imagine if the Kurgan? What was Kurgan?
Kurgan.
If he'd gotten the prize?
Kurgan. K-U-R-G-A-N.
Kurgan.
Kurgan. Not Kerrigan. Not corrugated. Kurgan.
Sorry, Kurgan.
No, there's no It's Kurgan.
Kurgan.
2 syllables.
That was really hard.
I don't know why it was so hard. It's Kurgan, not Kurgan.
Kurgan. Okay, so the Kurgan. Imagine if the Kurgan. Sorry. Imagine if the Kurgan had gotten
the prize.
Yeah, the whole world would have blown up.
Yeah, that's the idea. So he saved the world. He got the prize. He's gonna make world peace because he knows what everyone's thinking.
I like that, but you don't know that he saved the world until the end of the movie. You're like, oh, okay.
Well, he hasn't saved the world yet. He's going to. He just has the prize now. He has the ability to help save the world.
Right, but you don't realize that those are like that's the threat of the whole movie, is that if the bad guy wins, that he could kill the entire planet.
It says, Ramirez says, if the Kurgan wins the prize, there'll be darkness for all the mortals forever.
I don't think you said that.
I did say that. I 100% said that.
That was a really long time ago.
It was. It was back in the beginning of the movie.
A lot of things happened since then. There were like helicopters and magic lightning.
It was just at the very beginning when Ramirez was doing his big exposition dump about you're an immortal. I was born in ancient Egypt and lived in Spain now. So it was a while ago. But yes, it's made clear that if the Kurgan wins, it's going to be bad. But we don't know why it's going to be bad.
Well, good thing that he didn't win then.
Yes. And so along with all the telepathy, the other parts of the prize is he's now both mortal and fecund again. So he can have babies and he will age and die. So
what a weird prize.
I mean, you can kind of see it as the prize of being like, hey, now you can live a normal life. You can love again or whatever.
But what if you were like super into being immortal and then your prize is bonus, you're not immortal anymore?
Yeah, kind of a crap prize. Not going to lie.
That's really funny.
And there's this voiceover with Sean Connery, and it does all these flashbacks to scenes with Sean Connery in the movie. So it's just like, again, showing scenes of Sean Connery that he was in, nothing new. And Sean Connery sort of narrates and says about how now he's one with all living things and it'll take time, but he has power beyond imagination to use it well and to not lose his head.
Why is... Okay. Is it done?
No.
Is it done?
And then it ends with him making out with Brenda on the Scottish Highlands.
Oh, of course. I mean, because he's not immortal anymore, so I guess he could have a relationship with
so
this
cut to
one woman.
them making out on the Scottish hills, and then credits with Queen music.
And we're assuming he got cleared of all murder charges.
Well, he's in Scotland, so apparently they didn't revoke his passport when he found him in a warehouse that was destroyed from one of the famous New York landmarks with the decapitated body of a monster.
So, question.
Yeah.
Why is this set in Scotland? I mean, why not set in Scotland?
Because he's a Highlander.
I know, but is it tied intrinsically to like Scottish lore? Or
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of.
It was just like somebody sat down. Why isn't it set in Ireland? Why isn't it set in Egypt? Why isn't it set in...
There are people from all over. Like some of the immortals came from Egypt. Some of the immortals came from here. He just happened to be the Highlander. The Scottish one was the one who won the prize. So it's like you're following, like in reality shows when they film all the like backstories for all the contestants, but they only show the ones for the people who actually matter in the show.
Yes, you know who's going to win the
exactly.
events. You're like, oh, that one's important.
Danielle, if you don't think the Highlander is going to win the prize from the movie called Highlander, then you're not paying attention.
Okay, I assumed the Highlander was going to win.
Yes.
Especially since there are sequels.
Oh, the sequels. And there was a TV show, too, about his cousin, who was another immortal. And there was a cartoon for a while. So
Cartoon?
there was a cartoon Highlander. I remember that one. I wasn't really into Highlander. Like, I didn't know what it was as a kid. I didn't watch all the sequels or anything, but I did watch this as a teenager. But I remember the cartoon. I came across it as a kid. I didn't know what the heck it was, but it imprinted on me a little bit. Because it was so weird.
I really wish I had watched this.
The movie or the cartoon?
Yeah.
Well, you can watch it, Danielle. You should definitely watch it.
I am definitely going to watch it.
Even knowing all of this, it's worth the watch. So yeah, that's Highlander.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
That was like nothing that I don't even know. That was nothing that I expected. I don't know what I thought Highlander was about, but that was none of it.
No, it is absolutely nonsense. But it is frenetic, and it is fast-paced, and it's funny and weird, and it apparently did very poorly when it was released to theaters, but became a cult classic, and...
Yeah, everybody's seen it, except for me, apparently.
I don't know if everybody's seen it, but everybody should see it.
It's our suggestion of the week. Watch Highlander.
Watch whatever you want. I think it's a fun movie. I mean, it's of its time in some ways. Like, there's some problematic sexism and homophobia in it that aren't great, but at least it's a minimal compared to a lot of movies from the 80s. So, B+, I guess.
That was a wild ride.
Yeah. So, I know we'll do Highlander 2 at some point. But if anybody feels like explaining things in a way that doesn't spoil them, please write into us at our website, bookretorts.com. Explain anything what's going on, what the quickening is. I still don't really get that, so I could use some help.
You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Book Retorts.
All right. Well, that was weird and a lot of fun. And join us next time for our next piece of weird media. And until then, bye.
Take care, everybody.
Your consternation throughout this movie was excellent.
Yeah. I mean, I'd heard all those phrases before, like the quickening and the gathering and stuff, but I didn't know what any of them meant. Yeah, like, I've heard stuff from it, but I had literally, like, no context when people talk about it. You're like, sure, the quickening.